All right, good morning. How are you guys? Man, you guys packed out third service today. Look at that. Hey, my name is Philip Lindsay. I'm the youth pastor here at Expedition Church, and I get to teach you today, which I'm super excited about. We are continuing on in our Songs of the Soul series, and really what we've been doing is we have been taking a look at different psalms from the Bible, different songs, to just look at life and what do we do when it's hard? What do we do when it's easy and something good is happening? And so we've just been using them as our guide through some of the things of life. And so we're going to continue to do that this morning. I'm going to start us off by reading the psalm. It's Psalm 30 is the one that we're talking about today. If you have a Bible, you can turn there. If you don't and you want one, there's one in the pew in front of you. If you don't want to do either of those, it's going to be up on the screen. And so I'm going to read it for us, Psalm chapter 30, then I'm going to pray, and then we're going to dig into it a little bit. So Psalm 30 says this. It says, I will extol you, O Lord, for you have drawn me up and have not let my foes rejoice over me. O Lord my God, I cried to you for help, and you have healed me. O Lord, you have brought up my soul from Sheol. You restored me to life from among those who go down to the pit. Sing praises to the Lord, O you his saints, and give thanks to his holy name, for his anger is but for a moment, and his favor is for a lifetime. Weeping may tarry for the night, but joy comes with the morning. As for me, I said in my prosperity, I shall never be moved. By your favor, O Lord, you made my mountain stand strong. You hid your face. I was dismayed. To you, O Lord, I cry, and to the Lord I pled for mercy. What profit is there in my death if I go down to the pit? Will the dust praise you? Will it tell of your faithfulness? Hear, O Lord, and be merciful to me. O Lord, be my helper. You have turned my mourning into dancing. You have loosed my sackcloth and clothed me with gladness, that my glory may sing your praise and not be silent. O Lord, my God, I will give thanks to you forever. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for this morning. Thank you for these people in this room who have come together to meet with each other, to meet with you. I pray that you would teach us now, that we would grow, that we'd be different when we leave than when we came. We trust you to do that. We open ourselves up to that work, and we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, so I don't know about you, but there are some things from my childhood that I remember. If I did them in the daytime, I was totally fine. But if I had to do it during the nighttime, it was terrifying. Who's with me on that? There were some things, and as I was thinking about this idea of like, okay, during the daytime it's okay, during nighttime it's not, I began to think about some different examples. The first one I thought of is I thought of this shades on a window, right? The things that we pretend are for privacy, but really it's because we're afraid of the dark, all right? So you go up into your room and you lay down during the day and you're just trying to take a nap. The shades are wide open, the sun's blasting through, and you're just like, ah. But for some reason you get in bed at nighttime and the shade's still up and you're just like you want to go close it, but you know if you go to close it, something's probably going to like pop up in the window, and so you kind of just like roll over and then you finally get up and do it. It's terrifying. The dark is terrifying. Here's another one. Closet doors. Okay? Like, I don't know what the deal with closet doors are. But I walk into my room during the daytime and the closet door's open. No big deal. No big deal. It's nighttime. I walk in and the closet door's open. I'm just like, whoa, okay, something's in there. Freaks me out in the nighttime. Okay? I don't know. Here's another one. I don't know how many of you grew up in houses where you had to like go upstairs, but I grew up on the East Coast. 2-story houses are really popular over there. Worst thing ever, being the last person going from the downstairs to the upstairs, because what you have to do is stand at the bottom of the stairs and turn out the hall light before you go up the stairs, because you can't do it from up top. And so it's literally one of these. My record's like 3 steps, okay? Pretty impressive. Terrifying. Okay, here's the last one. I don't know why parents seem to do this to their kids, but who asks their kid to take the garbage down to the end of the driveway at night? Like, come on. Like, you could have asked me before dinner when it was light outside, but instead we eat dinner and then time goes by and sun goes down. Oh, Philip, time to take out the garbage. Now that it's dark and scary, and so you're sneaking out, turning on the porch light, turn on the garage light, got a flashlight, and this loud thing you're just dragging behind you. Just like paranoid. And then you get it and you sprint back to the house. I'm getting scared thinking about it. And I pretend that these are things that were just scary to me when I was a child, but let's be honest, they're still scary to me, okay? I take out the garbage in the morning. Okay? I walk it down to the end of my driveway in the morning because I get to choose when to do it. There's something about the night for children, there's something about the night for humans that just does not sit well with us. There's something about it that just does not sit well with most of humanity. In my childhood, it brought thoughts of monsters. In my adulthood, it gives way to things like sadness, anxiety, depression, worry. As soon as the head hits the pillow, the mind breaks free into this world of what's wrong, what's going on around me that's wrong. And the worst part is night is inevitable. A couple hours from now, it will be dark. And there's nothing that we can do about it. It's coming, and sometimes it feels like we just gotta get through the night. And if we just get through the night, we'll be okay, because as soon as morning hits, as soon as darkness gives way to the light coming up over the horizon, the monsters disappear. And the feelings associated with those monsters seem to fall away. And I tell you this because in today's psalm, which we read earlier, verse 5 says this. It's kind of the hinge point for the whole thing that he's trying to share with us through this song. He says, "Weeping may tarry for the night, but joy comes with the morning." And the psalmist really leans heavily on this picture of nighttime and darkness versus morning and light to teach us a lot about suffering, to teach us a lot about the hard times that we go through in life. And my hope for you this morning, my hope is that when it comes to the seasons of nighttime that you are either currently in right now or going to be in at some point in the future, that you would leave with the same hope that the psalmist has in this song that he's writing, which is morning is coming. Morning is coming. And so let's talk this morning about this idea. And what I want to go first is I want to go to talking about seasons of nighttime. And when I say seasons of nighttime, what I mean by that is seasons of suffering that we experience as human beings. Now, these seasons, it depends what it is, but for some of us, they last a day. For some of us, sometimes weeks, months, years, some people their whole lives. These seasons of suffering and nighttime. And when I say suffering, what I mean is the really difficult things that we all have to deal with because we're human and we live in this world. Every single one of us. Things like grief or loss, things like discouragement, things like depression, failure, regret, sorrow, worry, anxiety, fear, deep-rooted shame and guilt, seasons of nighttime and suffering. Now, suffering is extremely complex. Extremely complex. There's so many layers to what it feels like to hurt. Okay, and we can't go into every nitty-gritty detail of what it's like to be a human and experience something that feels like the nighttime. But what I want to do for us this morning is I want to clarify a couple things about suffering. That as you go through these seasons of nighttime, you can at least know some things to be true in the midst of that. And so we're just going to walk through three of them. The first one is this. First clarification about suffering is this, is that it happens to everybody. Okay, these seasons happen to everybody. Nighttime comes for everybody. No matter how hard you pray, no matter how much faith you have, these things happen. Just like the night will come tonight and there's nothing you can do about it, these seasons will come. These seasons will happen. You've all gone through nighttime experiences. You've all had these seasons of suffering to whatever the degree. And I think we're all smart enough in the room to know it's probably going to happen again at some point in my life. The psalmist who wrote this song thousands of years ago was going through the same thing that we go through now. He was going through a nighttime. The human experience looks a lot like the first three verses of the psalm, which is basically him going, I was in the pit and then I wasn't. I felt like it was hell on earth and then it wasn't. I was in the pit and then I wasn't. That's much of what our lives look like as we live this thing called life on this place called earth. And so they happen to everyone. That's the first clarification. The second one is this. When it comes to seasons of nighttime, seasons of suffering, they are extremely gut-wrenchingly difficult, painful things. And that's okay. It's okay. Listen to some of the language that the psalmist uses to describe their experience. Things like in verse 3, he says, my soul was in Sheol, in the pit. Modern day translation of that is, I felt like it was hell on earth. That's how bad it was. Verse 7, he has this moment where he feels like God has turned his back on him and he feels like God isn't present with him. That's a painful feeling to feel. And verses 8 through 10 is basically him pleading for mercy, saying, God, please come and rescue me. Please get me out of this mess. It hurts too bad. And so what we can learn from the psalmist as he describes his suffering is this: as a human being, when it comes to the nighttime, when you have a season of suffering, you have permission to feel the emotions that come with those seasons. And there's some of you in this room who you might be in the middle of a season of nighttime and you have not felt it yet. You have not let yourself feel it because you don't think that you're allowed to feel it. Let me give you permission right now. The thing that you are going through right now is hard and it's difficult. And if that's you in the room, you have permission to feel that. That's okay. You're a human. You have permission to feel that. These things aren't okay. You don't have to pretend that they are. You don't have to pretend that they don't hurt. So that loss of your friend or your family member, that's not okay. It hurts. That diagnosis from the doctor is terrifying. The way that your closest friend betrayed you is painful. Let's be real. That loss of your job is problematic. There's some real issues that come with that. That constant struggle with depression or anxiety is exhausting. These seasons of nighttime are hard, and they're difficult, and it's okay that they're hard. It's okay. So cry the tears. Ask God the questions. Be a finite human being in the confusing, painful, hard seasons of life. That's okay. That's the second thing I want to clarify about suffering. The third one is this: your pain isn't wasted. Your pain isn't wasted. You're not going through it for no reason. Listen to what Henry Nouwen, he's a Catholic priest, says about suffering. He says this. He says, the dance of life finds its beginnings in grief. Here, a completely new way of living is revealed. It is the way in which pain can be embraced, not out of a desire to suffer, but in the knowledge that something new will be born in the pain. The pain's not wasted. Without the pain of night, there's no joy in the morning. Just like Nouwen says, this doesn't mean go looking for it. This doesn't mean just try and suffer, and it doesn't mean that God caused it, but God will use it. Pain and suffering is a part of being a human living in the world that we live in, but God is big enough that he's taking all of your pain and he's moving it around and he's orchestrating it so that it ends in your joy, so that it ends in your good. So these seasons of nighttime, they're inevitable. They happen to everybody. They're difficult, and that's okay, but they aren't wasted. And we can't avoid them. In the Psalm chapter 30, it's not a roadmap to avoiding suffering. It's not a roadmap of like, hey, if you do this and you do this and you do that, then everything's going to be okay and you're not going to ever suffer. It's not that. But rather, it's wisdom and help for when those night times do come. When the inevitable dark times do come, how do we get through it? What does that look like? And so in this psalm, the writer is raw and honest, and he's basically like, okay, nighttime sucks. Okay, there's nothing about it that is good. This guy is going through the ringer. We don't know what he's experiencing, but he's experiencing an unexplainable pain. But if we look at the psalm as a whole, we realize that this song isn't written where his season of suffering has the final word. He seems to be on the other side of it. He seems to have found something that got him through the night. He seems to have some amount of hope. If we read it again, verse 1, the very first verses of this psalm, it says, I will extol you, Lord, which means I will lift praises up to you, God. Verse 4, then he commands the readers of the song, sing praises to the Lord, O you his saints, and give thanks to his holy name. And then he ends the psalm in verse 12 where he says that my glory may sing your praise and not be silent. O Lord, my God, I will give thanks to you forever. And so he's writing this psalm from a position of praise. He's writing this psalm with his hands lifted high saying, God, you are good, you are good. And in the same 12 verses that he's writing about experiencing hell on earth and feeling like God had turned his back on him, he's saying things like, I will give thanks to you forever. I want to know how. Anybody with me on that? I want to understand how can somebody do that? What's in here that we can see that allows the psalmist to do that? And it really is. The answer is right in verse 5 and 11, these two verses. Verse 5 says this, I'm going to read it again. It says, for his anger is but for a moment, and his favor is for a lifetime. Here's the key. Weeping may tarry, may go on for the night, but joy comes with the morning. Joy comes with the morning. Verse 11. You have turned for me my mourning into dancing. You have loosed my sackcloth. And sackcloth was this garment that people would wear back in those times when they were grieving. He says, you have loosed my sackcloth and clothed me with gladness. Now, here's what the psalmist knew to be true about the seasons of nighttime. Here's what he knew to be true about those inevitable dark seasons of suffering is this, that morning was coming. Morning was coming. God was bringing the light. God was bringing deliverance. Morning was coming, and he put his hope in that. He rested in that. He held on to that with everything that he was, and we can do the same. no matter how dark the night gets, no matter how long it goes on, morning is coming. The sun is coming up, and with it, it brings an unexplainable joy that can't be kept inside. A joy that causes our souls to sing. Suffering does not get the final word. Pain does not get the final word. Nighttime does not get the final word. Jesus does. Jesus gets the final word. Jesus endured the darkest night to ensure that night does not get the final word. This is the gospel. This is the good news. This is why we get together. Listen to this quote by a guy named N.T. Wright. What he says about Jesus. He says, Jesus doesn't give an explanation for the pain and the sorrow of the world. He comes where the pain is most acute and takes it upon himself. Jesus doesn't explain why there's suffering, illness, and death in the world. He brings healing and hope. He doesn't allow the problem of evil to be the subject of a seminar. He allows evil to do its worst to him. He exhausts it, drains its power, and emerges with new life. Emerges with new life. Jesus endured the darkest of nights, absorbed all of the power of the evil that causes the suffering in this world, and then victoriously crushed it on that morning 2,000 years ago as he was raised from the dead, bringing with him the unexplainable joy of the morning, the unexplainable hope of the morning. You can put your hope in that. You can hold on to that. You can reach for that and grab even just a little bit of that. You're allowed to feel the emotions of the darkness, of the nighttime, of the suffering. And it's okay to feel like you're barely getting through it. That's okay. And the thing that will help you get through it is to know joy is coming. Joy is coming. Because of Jesus, God is bringing deliverance that will break through the pain like the morning sun does to the night. And for some of you, your whole life may be a season of night. It may go on your whole life. But Jesus has ensured that even in death, joy is coming. The morning is coming. Jesus gets the final word. Hold on to that with everything that you are. Grab onto that with everything that you are. Nighttime will come, but more certainly than that, more certainly than nighttime, so will morning, and so will joy. Jesus has made it so. No matter how dark the night gets, no matter how long it goes on, the sun is coming up. The sun is coming up. I believe this to be true. I've experienced this to be true. I have struggled through seasons of depression. I've struggled through seasons of paralyzing fear, where it seems like the nighttime has won, that the nighttime has gotten the final word, but I've also experienced the joy that comes in the morning. I've seen it. I've experienced the joy that causes a soul to sing. I've experienced the hope that causes songs to overflow from my being. And so what we're going to do this morning is we're going to sing. Just like the psalmist, he ends in verse 12, he's singing. And so I'm going to have the band come up to lead us in that, but I want to recognize something. I want to recognize that it would be foolish to expect that everybody sitting in this room right now is in a season of joy. Okay? It'd be foolish because there are people in this room right now who are in the season of nighttime. And so here's my question. How can we come together and sing as one when some of us are experiencing joy and some of us are in the dark, deepest parts of nighttime? I think there's a truth that we can hold on to that allows us, even though we're all over the board, allows us to come together and sing. And it's this. It's that the same song that comes from our souls through the joy found in the morning, becomes the song for our soul when we need hope in the night. The same song that just overflows from our lives when we experience the joy of God coming through and pulling us out of the pit is the same song that we can hold on to and prayerfully sing when we're in the middle of the night. And so that's how we, who are all over across the board this morning, can come together and can sing together. And so wherever you find yourself this morning, either in the suffering of the night or the joy in the morning, let's sing. And let's be honest. Let's be honest about where we sit in that. And let's let the God who is here right now, present with us, be God. And meet each of us where we need to be met. And so for those of you tossing and turning and weeping right now in the season of nighttime, here's what I want you to know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that it's hard. I'm sorry that it hurts. I'm sorry that it's painful. I'm sorry that you can't see the end right now. But I want to encourage you with this. Joy is coming. Joy is coming. And so as we sing this song this morning, if that's you, sing it with a prayerful heart. Sing it with a heart desiring to believe it to be true. Ask God to meet you where you are in that. And then for those of us in this room who are overflowing with joy because we've seen God come through and we've seen him move us out of a season of nighttime, let this song come from the very depths of your soul. And sing it. Don't feel bad. Don't live in fear of the next nighttime season. With everything that you are, sing this while you can believe it. And so let's sing this morning.